everybody. Welcome to Project Herpetoculture Podcast. This is episode 61, and I'm your host, Roy Arthur Blodgett, joined as always by the wonderful Philip Leitz, all the way from Colorado, Mr. Arizona himself, the reason why you listen to this show. And we have an awesome guest today. I'm really excited to talk to this one and get into it. But before we do, I'm going to go through our housekeeping as always. And first, I want to give a shout out to Charlie. He's our audio wizard, keeping us on the rails here. I also want to give a shout out to Dylan and the Animals at Home Network for hosting our show.
The GOAT.
And I want to talk about our sponsors. So we have Custom Reptile Habitats. They've been with us since day one, and they are makers of premium PVC reptile enclosures. They also have a whole bunch of other products on their site, including some Universal Rocks stuff. So if you're in the market for a new enclosure or some Universal Rocks products, and you use the link in our bio or description to purchase them, we will receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. And that's always really appreciated on this end. We also have Cold Blooded Caffeine, and they're roasters of really nice quality coffees from all over the world. They donate 5% of each bag of coffee sold to conservation in coffee growing regions where you also find some really amazing herpetofauna. So check them out and use the code Project Herp for 10% off your order there.
Buy that coffee, y'all.
It's good. We got the Project Herpetoculture private label light roast from Rwanda for those of you that like that kind of thing.
Legit.
And lastly, we have Fairy Tale Dragons. So that's Heather Moy, Ron St. Pierre, obviously legends in herpetoculture, and we have huge respect for them and what they're doing. So I would strongly suggest following along with what they're doing. And if you're in the market for bearded dragons and some other cool obscure herps, look no further than Fairy Tale. So yeah, if you're interested in supporting the show directly, we always welcome that. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/Project Herpetoculture. And yeah, with all that out of the way, I'm going to pass over to Phil, and he's going to introduce our guest, and we'll get into it.
Awesome. Thanks, Roy. Yeah, our guest today is Frank Colacicco. And I met Frank by way of Drew Reinhardt, was the one person who introduced me to you. And he introduced me to you because he showed me some photos that you took of Uromastix thomasi in Oman. And I remember he was like, you got to hit him up so you can get some more pictures. You and I started talking. So we kind of became friends that way and started chatting, shooting the shit about whatever. And then you started Reptilian Diaries. So some of our listeners might know some of that work, and hopefully they should. If you don't, look it up on YouTube. It's some incredible stuff that Frank put together. Really cool. Kind of like, frankly, to me, it seems sort of like Anthony Bourdain meets reptiles in some regard, kind of like the vibe of that whole thing. And so it's pretty cool. But Frank, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, man.
Yeah, man. Stoked to be here. Thank you guys for having me. I'm honored to be here. You guys are well past 50 episodes now, right?
So, yeah, this is 61.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So
yeah.
It's
crazy.
I've known about it for a while, but it's just been a busy busy year, I guess. But I told you, Phil, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I was like, man, dude, I started listening to those and I just ran through them. They're interesting. I like how you guys do it. So stoked to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for that. It's good to hear. Really, really good to hear. So the way I think we want to start this out is kind of the way we start out most of the shows. Can you tell us a little bit about like how herpetoculture and herping started for you and how it became a part of your life? And then maybe a little bit about how it became a more substantial endeavor for you?
Yeah. It started fairly similar to everybody else, except I had a real kind of a leg up. My dad was, he was the general manager of one of those good old fashioned pet stores back in the day where, are we good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Years, man.
He had a pet store where just all the good stuff, man. Those ones where you used to go in and see, baby alligators and just the best stuff. And so I grew up in that pet shop, and I grew up, at the house, we'd have macaws and cockatoos and eclectus and freaking tokays and Calabar burrowing pythons, just all the stuff. And so to me, that was very, very normal. And I'd trip out when I go to people's houses and they didn't have anything. I'd be like, the fuck? Like, you guys don't have any even fish or anything? I'm just a dog. That's weird. And so I remember I was, looking through books and stuff, and just a tokay gecko. I mean, that was it. I was like, yo, that is it. I mean, blue and orange, like it's mad. Like I want those. I was like, Dad, you can get them. And he was like, I'll see if they're on the lists. And I mean, obviously they were on the lists. So he got me some tokays. I had no idea how actually mean they were. It fucked me up like gnarly many times. But I was like 11 years old, 12 years old. And that was the first time. And then I bred them. So that was the first time I actually bred a lizard. And I mean, it never stopped from there. It just kind of kept going. And growing up in Santa Cruz, California, where I live now, is not amazing for herping, but we have some rad herps here. And it's a place where, you grow up outside here. If you're in Santa Cruz, you're at the beach or you're in the redwoods, you are outside all the time. Yeah. And so, so I grew up in the redwoods, and, every log is getting flipped. And so, flipping logs, finding encetinnas and dicamptodon, the big Pacific giant salamanders, and alligator lizards and gopher snakes and all that stuff. And I just never shook it. It's just, dude, it's always been a thing for me. Like flipping logs, man, looking for animals. What's under that log? What's in that crack? What's over there? And so it just, it didn't stop. And this was, I'm 43. So this was back in like the 90s and stuff. So there was no internet. There was no social media. There was no cell phones. And so we had, Reptiles magazine. And then a little bit later, or actually around the same time, we had the Vivarium magazine. So I would look in the back of those. I'd send the friggin' SACE, the self-addressed stamped envelope or whatever. I'd get all the price lists. I met my buddy Paul that way. No, I met my buddy Paul from the fucking newspaper. He had an advertisement in the newspaper saying like that he had a Blazodactylus boivini, which is a Madagascar velvet gecko, and he wanted to trade it and a phone number. So I hit him up. I was like, yo, I got a Europlatus lineatus. I'll trade him. He was like, fuck yeah, I'm in San Jose. I was like, I'm in Santa Cruz. I'll come out. It's like 16, dude, drove out there. He had a way bigger collection than I at that point, I'd never seen what like a real gecko collection would look like. Cause I had like 4 or 5 tanks. I had, some geckos. I'm a gecko guy, by the way. I do lizards, but mainly geckos. And so it just tripped me out. I was like, yo, dude, this guy's got like, he's got like 100 animals. Like, this is insane. This is like, I'm doing this like fucking today. Like I'm doing this. So that sped it up, seeing that collection, and then, having that contact. And then he would send me a bunch of different price lists and contacts he had. So it kind of spread from there, just kept going. And then I never really like kicked it with a lot of the reptile guys. Cause I don't know, a lot of the reptile guys back then, especially, were just kind of like nerdy dudes, or they were way older than me. I was like a surfer skater, and, being a kid, you're like, oh, that's not, cool or whatever. I'm gonna go surf. I'm gonna go skate. And then I'd come home to the reptile collection. And then I remember for a while, I think I was 20, 21, I had moved from Santa Cruz to LA, got rid of the reptiles, and it lasted about 6 months. And I was just like, this isn't working. Yeah. Gotta get reptiles. Got reptiles again. And it never looked back, man. Lived in LA for like 20 years. Moved back to Santa Cruz 3 years ago. Got real big into field herping, met a couple of dudes that were into that. We started doing local trips. My buddy Greg took me down to the desert when I was like 17 or whatever. And that was just like, that was bliss, man. That was even better than keeping reptiles. And that also bolstered wanting to keep reptiles, because it was like, dude, this is so killer, dude. Like, and we talk, man, imagine, we're finding, horny toads or, coleonyx or whatever we're finding in the California deserts. Imagine finding, a freaking water monitor or something crazy. Like, imagine going to these countries, and it kind of just, dude, the ball started rolling there. We met a couple more dudes that were down like that. And then, like, sure enough, like, started going places like Costa Rica, Belize, then boom, South Africa, the Middle East, more of Central America, Europe, Australia, like, and just kept it going to where, now it's like 7, 8 trips into Africa, 7 trips to the Middle East, like a bunch of times in Central America, all over. And then once you do that, it's just ingrained. It's like part of you. And that's me kind of blending the two, if you will.
Yeah,
sure.
Man, there's something about, like, I remember the first trip I took, the first herp trip my buddy Nick Dokai took me on, and it was to Southern California. And it was like, man, there really is nothing nothing that compares experientially, emotionally to, you know, spending the entire day, you know, like 12 hours just hiking around from sun up to sundown, seeing every kind of weird thing you can see, and then going and grabbing some fucking In-N-Out for 30 minutes and then getting on the road and cruising and night herping, you know, the whole thing. It's like and to say that it bolsters your keeping is like a, not just dead on, but feels like an understatement in some ways. It's just like, oh my God, you know, it just changes it like the way I kept before I went herping was ridiculous, you know, and it wasn't terrible. I mean, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world, but like, I remember the first time I went field herping was the first time my Euromastix Thomasi bred. It was the same year. And I remember they mated like for the 3 days right before the trip. So like they were mating. And I remember like going, and all I could think about was like, man, I think I've got these Euros that are going to have eggs when I get home. And, you know, and then I go out and I do this herping and I learn all this stuff. It feels like almost every step you take, you're learning more about yourself and what you're doing. And I mean, it's kind of weird. I mean, can you maybe speak a little bit to why you think, like how you think about what makes it so impactful and why it's so intense for weirdos like us?
Well, I mean, yeah, like, dude, it's part of, I mean, it's a huge, like we're keeping these animals in captivity. Mm-hmm. I mean, these animals, we are taking them, usually not the animals that we're looking for in Southern California, but like, I mean, dude, we're keeping these animals in captivity. So it just makes, to me, it makes a more than sense to be like out there studying them in the wild. How doesn't that fucking compute? Like, why are they not more connected? It trips me out, dude. And I thought about it recently. I'm like, what? So like other hobbies, like people who are into birds or people who are into tropical fish, do these people go out and swim in lakes and shit looking for their fish? Or do they go looking for their, dude, like dog people? What do you guys do? You guys run around looking at wolves or something? Like, I don't know what these other people do. Like, I think insect people, some of them are down to go out and I don't even know, arthropod. What, I don't know what it would be called. Not herping, but bugging.
Arthropoding.
Yeah, arthropoding.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, is herping, is it its own thing, or do other hobbies do this? I know that like the gem hobby, some of those people are down to go and dig up their own stuff, but like,
yeah, that's true.
Hobby. Does the fish hobby do it? I don't know. I don't know any fish people.
I know
somebody's got to be wanting to go to like Lake Tanganyika to see these cichlids and shit like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
And if they did, I mean, imagine how much information they'd glean from that trip, dude. Like, you know, get suited up in your scuba gear, get down there and see what's happening, dude. And to me, like going back to the question, is just like it to me, it's not even two things. To me, it should be one thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really should. It's the study of reptiles. It's why herp is the beginning of, you know, herpetoculture. It's hand in hand to me. I mean, it makes so much sense to study the animals. And I mean, I get everybody can't do it. Everybody can't afford it, or their life situation doesn't allow them to. But I mean, if you guys have ever heard me talk at any of these symposiums or on other podcasts, like I preach it, dude, like get out in the field, stop spending so much money on these animals and caging and all that shit, and get out in the field and just see where that takes you, man. Yeah. Because it's so sick.
You know, it's also super interesting. We had my the guy who I've got working for me at the shop right now, Brendan Hedinger. He spends a lot of time talking to me about how the group of people around his age that he's friends with, they're all like what you're talking about. All of them are kind of like this weird mix of the two. Whereas, you know, you mentioned it. You mentioned a lot of other hobbies, areas of interest. You know, like, I don't know how many people who are like birders, like bird watchers, are actually also keeping birds, you know, like probably. And even I feel like it's also not that uncommon to know of people in herpetoculture or herpetology where they do one or the other and they kind of don't like the other person, right? It's like there are sometimes herpetologists who are like, I don't really like the captive hobby, and for one reason or another, and you're like, all right, well, word, I guess. And it's kind of cool to see that, or at least to hear anecdotally from Brendan, that there seem to be more. Some of the younger generations seems to be a little bit more holistic in their approach, and like Brendan just went down. He left this summer for two and a half weeks and spent like two and a half weeks in Costa Rica, just herping out there. And he sent me pictures every night on Instagram. He'd send me pictures of like finding caiman and finding all, like, just, you name it, just all kinds of crap. And it's really cool, and we were kind of shooting the shit a little bit before the show, before we started recording, about how, there's this desire that we have for people to do that. You say you sort of sing it from the rooftops at anytime you go speak at any symposium. And I'm curious, from your perspective, I mean, this might seem like an obvious question, but like, why is it so important to do both to you? Like, what is it? Is it just purely for the educational value, or is there something more to it than that?
I mean, dude, for me, I mean, it all depends on the type of person you are. Like, I think all of us, I don't know. I mean, did you grew up in Colorado?
I did grow up
here. You
grew
up in California, Northern California?
Yep. Santa Rosa.
I mean, so being West Coasters, I feel like we're pretty outdoorsy people, especially California and Colorado. Northern California, especially, Santa Rosa, same thing. You guys got the woods, you guys got all kinds of stuff up there. Yeah. And like, so me being an outdoor person, like it's a no-brainer. Being outside, it feeds my soul 100%, just like keeping reptiles feeds my soul. And so, both of those things feed my soul. Studying reptiles on a layman level feeds my soul. Like I was talking to you guys about earlier, reading herpetology books, reading field guides, reading natural history books, reading the history of herpetology from the 1700s, the 1600s, freaking Linnaeus and Dumeril and all the Holbrook and all these, the fathers of herpetology, reading about these guys. There was no herpetoculture back then. It was just herpetology. Nobody kept anything. And a lot of these guys weren't even field herping guys. A lot of these guys would just go to these museums and find these huge collections that these crazy like pirates and shit had stashed away on boats and dropped off at museums. And they'd study these and describe species off of these. And a lot of those guys, they seemed like they were city folks. They're from England and France, in the middle of the city. And they might not have been built for being outside, being out in nature. But like, for me personally, I mean, I think, like I said, it makes both of these things, they feed my soul. They're huge hobbies of mine. Even if I'm not herping, man, I'm taking my girls out for walks in the redwoods. We're down on the beach. We're outdoors. We're outdoors people. I think you guys are outdoor people, and just hand in hand.
Yeah.
There's something about it. It's like I feel like it contextualizes it all. There's something about like when I see people who come to herpetoculture from a totally different avenue and they don't have that context of these animals in their native habitat, I think it's just it's a totally different worldview and like mindset about what we're doing. And it's so weird to me because sometimes I'll be talking to somebody and I'm like, wow, we look at this thing that we're both heavily invested in, but for totally different reasons. And it can be kind of like this like whiplash moment for me occasionally, because I feel the same way. It's like, as a kid growing up, it was like reptiles brought me outside, like I was going outside because I was like in the backyard. Like, I know there's an alligator lizard that lives in this wood pile and I'm going to catch it today, and that was like my childhood, just all that on repeat. And then, getting older, it was like I started hiking and getting into the outdoors because I wanted to go find reptiles. Like that was kind of the cherry on top, right? And then, of course, now it's like a much more general interest of mine. But I also feel like there's something about like, in terms of like the educational value aspect of it, it's like because reptiles, so many of them are microhabitat specialists, there's like certain like kind of intangible qualities about like their preferences. They almost need to be felt more than read about, or like,
Yeah.
and there's just certain things that you can only get from being in the fields. And I think about that all the time with like, all this tropical stuff that I've never been down to where it's from. And it's like, I need to get down there because I know I'm missing tons of shit.
Yeah. Dude, I was telling Phil that, I don't know, a while back. And I told him, I said, next to him on trip, you're coming. And I was like, you won't get it until you stand there. You won't understand the real question of what the fuck Tomasi are eating until you stand there and see that there's nothing for them to eat.
Yeah.
Really nothing. Like these things are eating rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Tomasi, right. Uromastics, but yeah, dude, like you got to stand there. Standing in the habitat is so important, dude. Reading all the books and doing all that kind of stuff and being on the forums and being active, it's all dope. But put your feet in the habitat. And and like for you, Roy, you only need to go so far. I mean, I know your stuff probably comes from Guyana or Suriname or whatever, but
yeah, exactly.
Don't they find spheloides, and you have Phrynonax or Sustes, or what are they these days anyways?
Yeah. Well, Spheloides. I have Phrynonax too, but
okay. So they're all what? They're like Costa Rica and South, right? Or Phrynonax puffing snakes.
Yeah,
right?
and I've found Phrynonax in Costa Rica. I've been down there a couple times, and like that's I get the feeling of like what it is to be in like a jungle environment, or like that kind of the neotropics, so to speak. But I'm sure, like again, there's got to be nuances, between like Costa Rica versus Suriname. There's a lot of overlap too.
Totally.
But,
and you're also Costa Rica is a pretty hilly country. Suriname, from what I know, is fairly flat, and
yeah, exactly.
They're in both habitats, and I guess it kind of depends on where you get them, but they seem to. And I also think that any animal that has such a big distribution is probably pretty damn. They can tolerate a lot of different microhabitats.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of a generalist
within a neotropical situation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Yep.
But staying in the habitat, big. It's a big one. I mean, especially like, dude. And so imagine standing in the habitat of animals that you're not even keeping, just finding an alligator lifted outside. I found one today. It's the same shit from when I was a kid. When I move a tub, oh shit. Like, dude, it's a smile every time. Yeah. It's like stupid thing. You're always stoked, dude, no matter what. I got freaking fence lizards everywhere on this property, dude. And every time I see him, I always look. I'm always like, oh, there he is. Like, and it's always that way. And so when you get to the point of like actually seeing the animals you keep, like the reason why, like with Phil, it's like, I don't even know how he is in the field. I just want to see what he looks like when he sees his first freaking Tomasi.
Oh yeah.
I want to see what that is.
Yeah. I want to see that stoked.
I'm probably going to cry, honestly. Like, I'm not, honest, like really, like I'm tired, dude. I'm a super emotional person, and I'll probably cry. Like it's funny. I think about this. So I don't know, the year and a half ago or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, before Rach and I moved into the apartment that we're in now, we were looking for places to live. Like we were looking for various, either to homes to buy, which we couldn't really afford, but we were also looking at like different places to rent. And one of the places that we found was like this great little like single story house. We didn't get it because we, just didn't work out, but like, it was this little single story house that would have been really perfect for what we were doing. And we went to the backyard. It had this huge backyard, like this it's kind of like my mom's house. And it was like this small house, but a massive backyard, big gardens, raised garden beds and whatnot. And we're walking through the backyard, and it's like, it's like early spring, or maybe even mid to late spring. I can't remember. But I remember we walked through the back, and I walked around one of the raised garden beds, and there was a big old garter snake just sitting there, just like this big. And I was like, this is the place. We are going to go here. It's like, the thing is, they're everywhere, like it wasn't, but it was such good vibes. It was something about, it brought me back to being, even though I grew up here in Colorado, all of my first herp interactions happened in Connecticut, because I was born in New London, Connecticut. And I remember I would go out into the backyard, and I would either find garter snakes, because we had resident garter snakes all over the place, or I would find salamanders like all over, like onto the rocks. I would flip rocks in the garden, and my mom would just drive her insane, because I would tear up her garden and step on her plants and stuff. And I just remember the thrill of it, you know, and it felt like something different about, you know, about seeing this other thing, this other weird creature that had, you know, I don't know why it had resonance or meaning for me at all, because I didn't feel that way seeing birds. I didn't feel, you know, even though birds are awesome, I love birds, they're cool, you know, but I didn't feel that way seeing the birds on the fences. I didn't feel that way seeing the cats running around the neighborhood. I didn't feel that way seeing the bugs. I would feel that way seeing praying mantises. That was dope as hell. I was like, oh, something cool. This is the coolest shit. But there's something about those animals in particular, the snakes, the frogs, the salamanders. And then when we came out here, the various stuff that I can see here, there's something about those goddamn reptiles and amphibians. And I was just like, you and me, we're bros. We're going to be friends. I don't know why. I like everything about you. I like everything you do. I don't know what it is. And when we go to Oman, the first Euro that I see in the wild, I am sure I will cry. Like, I have no doubt about it.
I'm going to film it. It's going to be funny.
And I'm going to look at it and
cry.
And the first thing out of my mouth is going to be, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm doing it all wrong. I got to figure it all out. I got to reshape everything I'm doing, because this is what it's supposed to be, you know?
All you got to do is keep them friggin' hot and nothing. Just keep nothing in the cage and keep them hot as shit, dude. It's like what it is.
Just feed them minerals. That's all they need.
Dude,
that's all they get out there.
Literally like pieces of wood. I feel like it's so crazy. I mean, I've showed you pictures, dude. There's nothing. I mean, they have to be eating tiny seeds and little sticks. And dude, it's like this inland plateau where we find a lot of the Tomasi. So there's a kind of different habitats for them, but the one spot where there's nothing, it's just a trip, dude. There's nothing. Just rocks.
Just dead rocks. It's just rocks.
Dead rocks. Yeah. To the point where I'm almost like, I wonder if they're like, when they're burrowing down, if they're finding like old roots hanging down burrows and eating them, because like, I'm not kidding, bro. There's nothing. Yeah. There's like there's some random scraggly acacia trees and stuff. They might be eating the seeds and shit that fall off of there.
Yeah.
But I mean, for them to have that much weight on them, and dude, the Aegyptia are there with them. Those are big lizards. Those need to eat a lot.
Huge lizards.
So it's like, man, the hell are you guys eating?
It's totally weird. It's a very weird, it's like it's, you know, I feel that way also when I go out to Arizona and find chucks or anywhere there's chucks, really, because you can go at certain times of year. You go like peak summer, it's the same thing. There's nothing like the closest bushes are just bones. Totally. You know, it's like there's no greenery, there's no plant life. And you can find these super fibrous chuck turds that have like seed pods in them and whatnot. And you're like, look,
yeah, it's like you guys are literally branches off of the freaking stuff. And I remember, dude, speaking of chucks, I remember one year it had been like 2 or 3 years of drought, and I was down in like Borrego area, and man, all the chucks we were finding were just like pretty close to death. Like, it was gnarly. I've never seen that, because normally it's like, you know, like in Oman or whatever, you don't see any food, but the animals are really healthy. And this time you don't see any food, and these animals were jacked up, dude. This fool, he lost his audio.
Oh, sorry, I turned the mute off. You mean like swole or like jacked?
I mean no, not jacked. They were skinny.
Oh, okay.
Chuck wallers were like on death step, dude. Like, we were giving them water, and I was like, dude, we need to go buy some salad for these fuckers, man. These things are like, dude, they were in bad shape, real bad shape. And even some of like the geckos we were finding, like the Phylodactylus and stuff, they were real skinny. So, I mean,
man.
But I guess they're used to having more food items available. I mean, the Uromastyx, it's just really like Tomasi and then Aegyptia in that area. Like when I found Benti and when I found Aegyptia, I guess Leptini in the United Arab Emirates, there's way more food opportunity for them. But just down in that southern part of Oman is where it's gnarly.
Dude, those you call them Leptini. I have always pronounced it Leptionai. I don't care. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. Those things, those are so badass. Like I love those animals. Those are some of the coolest animals. Oh my God, they're so beautiful. So like, there's not a lot of. I feel like a lot of people don't even know about them, because they usually just think of like, oh, we have Aegyptia and Microlepis. It's like, no, there's one more. There's one more. Big black peach heads. Oh my God, so cool.
They're cool. They're big.
Well, so I would love to ask a little bit more about your trips and like, so I know I'm imagining, so Reptilian Diaries, is that you're not really, are you still, is it something you're still gonna chip away at, or like tell me more about it. Like, I'm curious.
Yes. Reptilian Diaries is not dead. What happened was, it's a dope mug. I like that. What happened? Oh yeah.
I'll send you one.
Yeah, we'll send you one, bro.
It's some. I like that. I love coffee too. I'll have to buy some of your blend, or your, actually not a blend. It's a single. What do you call it?
Single origin. Yeah.
Single origin. Dude, you got to get a single origin, like from a coffee plantation that like has freaking Spilotes sulphureus like on the plantation.
I want to. I've already thought about it.
So sick.
Reptilian Diaries, still alive. I was killing it. I was not killing it, but I was staying on top of it, making videos, doing this, that. And then COVID happened, kind of derailed it. And then me and my wife had our second child, and that full blown derailed everything. One kid is one kid, two kids is like 30 kids. It's insane how much. It's just crazy, dude. So that just, I mean, I can't go anywhere in terms of, I can go on short trips. I mean, if you guys have seen, West Texas stuff, Southern California stuff, but finally I'm like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, where the new baby is weaned, she's starting to sleep on her own, and things are happening to where I'll be able to get back out. So no, Reptilian Diaries is not dead. It's just at a low point right now. I just put out a video, I think a week ago.
Yeah. Garanotis.
Yeah, Garanotis. That was a good fun. That was a lifer for me. That was 2 lifers in that video. So that was a decent one. But yeah, dude, there's been no time, no bandwidth. It's funny because normally it's like, oh, I just didn't have the money. But right now it's like, yo, there's money, but there's no time or bandwidth to go on these damn trips, dude. So, but dude, I mean, it's given me a lot of time to plan, to research, to get a lot of different trips in my mind. And so, yeah, it's still alive. I'm going to still be chipping out videos here and there. I can't give any sort of schedule, but
yeah, sure. How did it come to be? I mean, because you were clearly doing plenty of herping well in advance of ever doing it. Like, what motivated you? What brought you to make it a thing that you're like, I'm gonna make a logo. I'm gonna contact Phil. I'm gonna have him make me this logo, and I'm gonna like edit these videos. And I'm gonna put it out there, and I'm gonna do this thing. Like, how did that?
That's a great question, and a question that I'm looking forward to answer, actually, because so how it happened was I would be sitting at my house, like, fuck, man, I've looked at all of my photos 300 times. I wish. And then I'm going through YouTube and I'm just like, dude, these videos suck, dude. Sorry, you guys. Like, no offense. There's a couple good ones. There's a few good channels. If you're watching this, maybe it's yours, maybe it's not. But there's a few good channels. But for the most part, man, just garbage, dude. And I was just like, dude, I want to watch field herping. I want to see people looking for reptiles. Like, dude, I want to watch this shit. And I've watched freaking Mark O'Shea. I've watched freaking Austin, whatever his name is. Dude, I've watched Steve Irwin. I've watched all of them, dude. Like, I want to see herping.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, fuck, I'm going to film my own herping, dude. Like, I go herping. I want to see that. I want to be able to watch that stuff again. I want to be able to show my daughters this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I haven't been to Oman dude, it just tripped me out. It's been like 5 years. I want to go back and watch my Oman videos. I want to go back. I wish I had Southern Africa videos because, dude, I've been all over that freaking southern part of that continent, so many countries, and I didn't film any of those because I was long before. But so I don't want to regret stuff like that anymore.
Yeah,
I want to have those videos. And dude, it's an undertaking to film. It absolutely sucks. It almost ruins the trip a little bit. It sucks. But when I get home and the video's done, like the Australia series, I'm pretty proud of. Like, it's worth it because, with my buddies, it's always like, wait, dude, wait, don't grab the freaking 6-foot Woma that's crossing the road, dude. Let me get the camera out, and they're just like,
yeah,
fucking Woma, dude.
Yeah.
So it's tough to film them, dude. but I guess it's a labor of love because I mean, I really don't care about like the subscribers and all that stuff. I put it on YouTube so people can watch it because I feel like it is watchable stuff, but I don't push it real hard. So it's a labor of love for me, and I'll keep doing it. And I'm not tripping if people subscribe or don't subscribe. It's like, yo, if you like it, watch it. I mean, it doesn't cost you anything to stay subscribed if I don't put videos out. And I'll eventually get more.
You got to work on your marketing, Frank. You got to be like, yo, go subscribe, click on my, go to my Patreon, the whole thing. No,
but something you'll never hear me say subscribe.
I know,
my daughter says it. I don't say it. I won't say it.
Right. Well, but I'm just saying, because I think one of the things I really liked that I really not liked about Reptilian Diaries is that, it really feels like, I mentioned this before the show, it kind of feels like Anthony Bourdain's show, but for, with the herping twist on it. Right. I mean, I rewatched your Oman the Oman episode or episodes like multiple times, like over and over and over again. And I'm like, man, I want to go jump in some random pond river in Oman after finding Yemenensis, or Benti and Thomasai. And I mean, come on, damn it, dude. I want to go do this. Like, this is so, it really wrapped into, it really like encapsulated the trip in a way that, in fairness, I haven't watched as many other sort of expedition type shows other than the ones that I grew up on TV. That was cool and all, but like, you're exactly right. It was like it was a herp show. It was a herp trip. It was like the way I would go. It felt like the same kind of trip I would take. I'd film, like when I go to Southern California, it's like, I feel like if it would be, you'd film me searching for damn Baja collared lizards and granite chucks. And then we'd go get a date shake and talk about it and talk about how good the date shake was, and then get a burger, and then it'd be night cruising. And it'd be like, look at these little stupid geckos scorpioning their tail across the road. And it would be me and my friends in the rental car just shooting the shit. And that's the best part. That's the best part of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what I really wanted to like to encompass, I guess. I've actually totally fallen off, but like I was very into photography and I still am. But so on YouTube, I started watching these like photography vlogs, I guess. And these dudes would just, I think Peter McKinnon was one of them, super rad guy to watch on YouTube. He's got millions of followers. Just these guys that they'd shoot these killer vlogs and they'd be doing photography, but it would be a lot of the B-roll stuff and just behind the scenes shit. And it was so cool that I think that's kind of what influenced me to film more of like, in the car and talking to my wife or talking to my buddy Mickey or fucking around or whatever I'm doing. And then add reptiles, because the ones where it's just like, bam, reptile. It's like, okay, this is cool, but like I can flip through a damn field guide. Like I want to see how it happens. I want to see the fundamentals of it. And that almost in a very strange way ties back to like why field herping is tied to herpetoculture. It's the fundamentals. I like that shit. Like I want to see the whole picture.
It's totally. It's like if you go back and you read like Snakes and Snake Hunting by Caulfield, like a lot of it is like the anticipation, and like him describing the terrain he's moving through and the people that he's meeting, and all that stuff. That's part of what made those books so good. It's not that he's just like, here's a paragraph of when I found the Willard eye for the first time. It's like,
totally.
This is like the week of work to get there.
I love that. I eat that shit. I love it, dude.
It's the best.
Oh man. Yeah, it's so awesome. I mean, so you say, fundamentals. I mean, you said, oh, this is the fundamentals, right? And like, again, that's sort of speaking my martial arts language in a lot of ways, because it's like, we talk about getting back, the fundamentals is something that'll never let you down, in at least in jiu-jitsu, the fundamentals.
They generally won't in anything, I feel like. I mean, name something. Like, I mean, dude, damn near, there's things, but a lot of, fundamentals that's the foundation, dude.
Right. Well, and so I guess where I was kind of going with that is, what in your mind makes the field herping experience the fundamentals? Like, what is it about that is so fundamental to what we do from your perspective?
I mean, from my perspective, we're taking a piece of that and putting it in our house. And so without ever seeing that to put in our house, what the fuck are we putting in our house? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like a lot of these, none of these crested gecko people are keeping a piece of New Caledonia in their house besides the gecko. But if you were to go to New Caledonia, which I've preached that all these crested gecko people should go, you would want to take a small piece of that, low shrub, semi-arboreal habitat where they're finding these Rhacodactylus or Coralophus ciliatus, recreate that in your living room and be stoked on that. Like that was the fundamentals of herpetoculture. And so to me, that's the thing, is I started keeping reptiles because I wanted to see them more often than just when I was able to go outside and flip a board and find one. I wanted to have them inside all the time. So at any given time, if I wanted to see an alligator lizard, which I'm sure was my first pet lizard, I can't even remember, that I would go into my house and boom, there's an alligator lizard. Look at that. I put a bunch of dirt, and I even put like probably a piece of 2x4 in there, because that's exactly how I found it outside. I've recreated that inside, and there it is. Evolve us, 30 years. And now we've got, Uromastics or friggin' Spoloides or, the different geckos and shit that I have, where I strive to have gone to, half of my collection's native countries to see what the fuck I'm dealing with. And I've learned a lot. And so there's multi facets to that answer, I guess. It's the fundamentals. It's knowing how to recreate the habitat. It's knowing what the temperatures are. It's also just being able to say, like, yo, I am experienced enough to keep this animal because I went there. I put the work in.
Yeah. It's kind of like eating your vegetables in a way. It's like, getting your fiber every day, right? In some regard,
paying your dues a little bit. Like, in a sick way, like it's not, you don't have to do it, but hook yourself up and do it. It's important.
So, I've used in various conversations, I've used sort of like art analogies, like drawing and painting analogies. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try to use one here, and hopefully I can make it digestible, like, and understandable. Sometimes I can be long-winded with this stuff, but bear with me on this. So, I've started thinking about the ways that people keep as kind of like a stylistic tendency in terms of drawing and painting. So in some ways, going out and field herping is a lot like doing your figure drawing and your life painting and your landscape painting. If you're, like, say, a commercial illustrator or an editorial illustrator, where you're generating pieces where the sort of like the final form of the work, the final look is imaginative and not real, right? It's not real in any way, but you're taking reference from all of the work you've been doing, studying form, studying the human body, studying light, studying color, studying all of this stuff, right? Like refining your skills. And, like, in some ways, I'm starting to see certain kinds of herpetocultural practice as highly extreme contemporary art. And what I mean by that is, like, the kind of contemporary art that your average person has, like, something of a little bit of a disdain for in some regard. And I don't necessarily agree with this, right? Because people will say this about Jackson Pollock. They'll say, oh, Jackson Pollock, he's just splattering paint around on a canvas. I could do that. It's like, well, do it. Go do it right now. Mm-hmm. I dare you to do it and make it look like a Jackson Pollock, because I guarantee you it's not as easy as it seems. Now, with that said, it's so far removed from an Isaac Leviton or a Nikolai Fetchin or a Norman Rockwell, where the work is so it is the embodiment of understanding of the way, like, form, like physical form actually works, and it has a message that it's sending you in one whole package, right? And so in some ways, some of the most highly refined, highly developed naturalistic setups and enclosures, where there's this beautiful synchronization of habitat study and physics, learning gradients, learning lighting, learning nutrition, learning chemistry, learning aesthetics, plugging the animal into it. Like this is a highly refined classical painting in some regard. And yet, if you look at, say, an artist like Nico Marley, who's responsible for making the character designs for Kung Fu Panda, for example, right? It's beautiful artwork. It's absolutely stunning. And it takes a lot of the same information, but it takes a twist and kind of spins it. Like you and I, people, humans like us, we could never, like, it's crazy that we can watch an animated movie and understand that's a hand, that's an eye, that's a face, that's a body. This is a world that exists. But it's flat shapes on a screen. Like, it's not real. You know what I mean? And in some ways, I feel like there are kinds of herpetoculture that are, you know, people have been eating their veggies. They've been studying their references. They've been paying attention to the natural world, but they've stylized their practice in the enclosure, right? I feel like in some ways I kind of think about this about what I'm doing, right? Because you look at my enclosures, they're not naturalistic in a sense. I mean, they are in a way. They have there's some information in them that is garnered from going out and field herping and doing what I'm doing, but they're not exact replicas. They're less refined than that in some regards. So that, you know, in some way I'm doing like anime drawings, but in a herpetocultural context. Does this make sense? Am I making sense?
I'm totally following you. Yeah.
You're tracking with me, Frank?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, I think there's no right or wrong, like in art, there's no right or wrong way per se. I mean, there's a wrong way. But I guess there's not necessarily a 100%, or there's many right ways, I should say.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, but then it begs the question. So the other day, this is funny.
Okay.
And this is totally reptile related. I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw that there was a cage manufacturer. Beautiful black box. Perfect perfect router edge. Everything's so perfect, and it's black, and it's got these little red things on it with a carbon fiber fucking perch. And I was just like, what? Like what? Like who and what and why and what? Like, what is this shit? Like, and they're obviously being sold for people who are keeping arboreal snakes, and mostly like Moralia, green pythons, emerald tree boas. And I've noticed this in that avenue of the hobby is like a lot of these people, they do really keep those animals in absolute Spartan contemporary style, nothing in the cage except for this green snake. To me, I don't like that. It looks like shit. It looks lame. These are beautiful animals that are like, just, I mean, so niche oriented that they're just made to be in a tree of green, and you've got them on a white piece of PVC pipe in a plastic box. Like, I get it. It's easier. You know, you can keep track of everything, but it's like, fuck it, dude.
Well, it's again, it's that like decontextualization, you know, it's like totally decontextualized, which in some ways is like, that really showcases the animal.
It does.
Right. Cause you have that juxtaposition, but it's also like, I get what you're saying, where it's like that for me, there's no appeal to it. There's something about like, I want to see the animal in context, you know, like that's what's interesting to me.
What you just said hits on the topic of like, there's just different strokes for different folks. Some people literally do not talk to a lot of people. Some people do not care to go field herping. They don't care.
Oh yeah.
They have no desire. No desire.
Yeah.
Dude, you got friggin' 15 Amazon tree boas. Dude, let's run down there, dude. Let's go to Yasuni. Let's go see them. Nah, I'm good.
Dude, I mean, you know, it's weird because I really, this does feel so much like the art conversation, you know, because I used to teach at Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. That's where I went to school. That's where I got my art education. And I used to have these conversations with students where inevitably, you spend 6 hours a day in a classroom just drawing and painting with people. Inevitably, you talk about stuff, right? You can't sit through that time without having conversations. You go through critique, right? Because you generate work, you put that work up in front of the class gives you feedback, the teacher gives you feedback, and you talk about, well, this is a shit composition. You need to work on your composition skills. Like, or you're only in the idea phase. None of these ideas work, but this one looks good. This is the way to go. Drive at that. And then, inevitably you generate like a finished product and you put it up for criticism, right? And it's how you get better. It's how it helps you get better, which actually I kind of feel like maybe we should have in herpetoculture in some way. But, inevitably these conversations would come up around what art do you like? What artists do you follow? Who do you pay attention to? What work inspires you and motivates you, right? And I remember these conversations where it would, I would bring up a contemporary artist, say, like someone would mention, it's like, oh, thankfully it's not like Andy Warhol and that bullshit, because that's not even art. And I'm like, well, let's pump the brakes here, big shifter, actually, I think it is art. Like, for me, anything that humans make is art. Now we can have a conversation about whether it's good or bad, right? Like I can say this is good art, or this is bad art, or this art is in poor taste. This art is not, I mean, and it's like, I feel like in some ways it's like the same conversation we're having in a way, right? Like, because I agree with you. It's something, a carbon fiber perch. All right. I mean, if that squares the circle for you, I mean, go nuts. But to me, that sounds kind of gross. But at the same time, I have a total appreciation and respect for the fact that might really appeal to somebody else. Now, I might also disagree with the premise for why it appeals to them, right? Like that might also be a bit like opposed to my sensibilities as a person. But like in some ways, I think this is kind of like what the conversation boils down to in a way. It's like we're all generating this thing that is herpetoculture, which is art in some ways, because it just mimics the world. We're just making this stuff that's meant to mimic the world and bring it into our houses because we're so fucking disconnected from the natural world around us. And those of us who get out into the natural world more have a desire for it to be this thing that is a more natural, like this. We want to see it more like we know it really exists. We know it's out there. We want it to look like, I can't wait for somebody to generate a habitat, like a captive habitat that looks like a board that you flipped in your backyard and found an alligator lizard in it. It's like, oh, it's just a board with a bunch of grass underneath it. Like how stupid a setup would that be? But like and then there's these other folks who maybe they're not getting out into the natural world as much. Maybe it's not as big of a draw for them. Maybe it's not hitting them in the same way. And so you see them, doing what sort of like what the broader culture is doing, which is like sanitizing, medicalizing, disconnecting, decontextualizing, right? All of this stuff. And it's kind of weird. Like there've been times in my life where I feel like I have a lot of respect for certain individuals that do things that way. And I still do because there is something to be said for like having that level of dedication to a craft. And at the same time, most crafts aren't considering or aren't involving a living organism, So like,
right.
So like Damien Hirst is another artist he does this stuff, right? He makes these things it's called butterfly paintings, right? And so some of them are these there'll be like a canvas with paint on it. And what he does is the paint is kept wet and he assembles these butterfly wings in ornate patterns on the canvas. Mm-hmm. And they're meant to look like a stained glass window. They're remarkably beautiful pictures. Like they're insane. But then he contrasts those with huge, identical canvases that'll be 10 feet by 10 feet with a thick layer of paint on them. And he'll release butterflies into the room and have them catch into the paint and die there. And then that's where they stick. And they're contrasted because it's like, here's this thing that's like ornately put together and so meticulously put together with like a body of an animal. And then here's this other thing that's utterly random and it captures the random movement. I mean, there's a lot to it. I mean, it's not, I'm doing a horrible job.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not describing his artist statement very well, but like these pieces really, I always got a huge response out of these because like, man, this is exactly what art's supposed to be. It's visually compelling. It's visually intense and wild. It's emotionally compelling and weird. It's a little disturbing. Like, I don't know how comfortable I feel with you taking an animal and like treating it as a prop in your artwork, right? There's something that it's like to be that butterfly. It's a little awkward. At the same time, I eat burgers. So like, how much beef can I really have with that? Right. But I feel there's so much about, I feel like it's the reason that makes us uncomfortable, that he's releasing like live butterflies into the room and letting them catch and die in the paint to make art. I think that's the same reason why it makes some people uncomfortable to see animals kept in like a medical, sterilized, decontextualized setup, because it's like, this isn't anything like, in what way can you justify that this is a good experience for the animal? And then it also offends our aesthetic sensibilities on top of that. So it's like this extra, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense I lost you a little bit on the,
sorry.
No, I get what, I feel like you're just kind of explaining like the different, I guess, desires of what each person wants to do with their herpetoculture or like with their cages and what their interpretation of this hobby is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of where I felt like you were going with it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's it. Okay, good. Well, at least okay. I wanted to make sure it was
I was like, I hope I'm following him. I mean, totally. I would like to see that, but yeah, throwing the butterfly, that's harsh, but it's
I know it's gnarly, right? Like, it's totally gnarly. He's also real famous for making that like that tiger shark that's suspended in formaldehyde. And and then also he did that platinum skull encrusted in diamonds. And then like he was he's a wild artist, man. Like, I don't know, he's a cool, I think he's really interesting and kind of a compelling painter. But like, in some ways it's like, yeah, I just feel like this really, to me, this really feels like it gets to the heart of what is so irritating about seeing a fucking green tree python inside of a totally blank cage on a carbon fiber perch, because it's like, this looks sick. And it does. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you it looks fucking cool. Like, it looks rad. It's just that there's this whole other consideration. There's this whole other part of it that we've got to consider. And I think that by being more like, by considering the natural experience and what, this whole thing, this naturalistic keeping that everybody thinks I'm opposed to now. Thanks a lot, Dylan. Like, like everybody thinks I'm opposed to naturalistic keeping. I'm not, but like, yeah. All right. I'm just like, if this feels like I've gone from, I'm now just like I'm just genuinely thinking out loud now. So I should probably like, I'm going to pause. Maybe let Roy hop in.
Gotta reel you back in a little bit here, man.
You're what?
Reel him in.
Gotta reel you back in. All right, I'm gonna ask Frank some stuff. I'm trying to
do it. Yeah,
trying to get us moving along here.
Yeah.
No, actually, I love this stuff. I mean, honestly, like I just think about this a lot. The whole like just the decontextualization, all that. I think that, again, a lot of it has to do with the like Frank said. It's like the different reasons why we keep. And
yeah.
That's why we ask the question we ask at the end of every episode, is like, I'm really curious about the different reasons why people keep. And anyway, but I'm curious, Frank, for you, just to speak a little bit about like, just like the value of traveling. I mean, like not obviously for herpetoculture, but also just like, just as a human being, how has it changed your perspective? How has it like informed the way you are in the world to have traveled to so many places, internationally?
Yeah, I totally forgot about that part. Like, traveling is yeah, apart from reptiles, I mean, it's amazing. It's so eye-opening on so many levels. Especially being here from the US, where we're, I mean, super pampered and guarded from all the scary things that are outside of the US. Like the first time I went to a Muslim country, I was pretty scared. I was like, this is going to be so crazy, dude. Like, I got to have my wits about me and all this shit. Dude, those people are incredibly freaking they're way nicer than anybody in my neighborhood, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never
sure.
one time been walking around anywhere in the United States and been asked to just, hey, come on in and have tea with my family multiple times.
Yeah.
Like in a week period, probably to the point where you have to say no because you want to go herping. You're like, dude, I can't sit in there and talk for 3 hours, bro. Like, I'm here to go herping.
You never know.
I had
the same experience.
Might have a great spot for Euros, man. You never know.
They do. I mean, most of them do. Most of them living right there in it. So that's one of the really, really cool parts, is just having the stereotypes blown away completely. And then sometimes having stereotypes cemented in place and being like, oh, that's real. South Africa, there's some stereotypes that are real with the different race stuff and all that. But then South Africa is also like, everyone's like, oh, it's so dangerous, it's so crazy, it's so this, it's so that. I mean, I've been to South Africa alone 6 times. I've never had an issue down there. The people aren't nearly as like nice and stuff as they are in Muslim countries, but just, I mean, they're just being able to see like just these crazy, the way people are living in other countries is just such a trip, because being in California, we have a lot of homeless people, and I see our homeless people here, and they're like actually, you know, oh, they're homeless. And then you see these people in like some of these like shanty towns is what they call them in South Africa, and it's like, oh, those are homeless people. And they're like, no, those aren't homeless people. That's a whole fucking neighborhood of just people going to work, and they got cars and shit. And you're like, yo, their house is made out of freeway signs. Like their wall exit sign. Like, what are you? They're not homeless. They're like, no, dude, that's a shanty town. They get by as they can get by. They got dude, and you'll see power lines going to these damn places, dude. Like going to the houses. Like they have electricity, and their wall is literally made out of a freeway sign. Like it's crazy how some of these other countries are, and just how people live. So, I mean, being able to see that and being able to experience that and just take that in. And I mean, it's cliche, but just to know how lucky we are to live here and be able to come home to, you know, just modern everything in our houses. So, I mean, I think it's all been said before by the great travelers, and I'm not a great traveler by any means. I haven't been that many places, but like, I mean, it really it just opens you up to many different things. I mean, you eat different kinds of food, you listen to different kind of music, you meet different kinds of people, you hear other languages, you see how other families interact with each other. You know, you see how you could be like, wow, that Arab guy's really like screaming at that Arab kid, but he's not at all. He's playing with her. And that's just like the dialect that they use sounds angry, but they're not angry at all. They're chilling. And it's a trip. I mean, the world's such a big place. And like herping, tying back to that, is just, I'm so thankful that herping is what makes me travel. Kind of like you said earlier, Roy, you said, you know, herping is what got you outside. Dude, I would never have gone to like South Africa or, you know, the Arab Emirates or Oman or Qatar or any of these places, probably not even Australia, like just to go. And when I think back about it, like, oh yeah, I would have. But then I'm like, why? Like what interests you in Australia, dude? Like the waves are dope, but we got good waves here. Like why would you go to Australia? And then that gets me on the whole other topic of, why are these other people so into traveling and they're not into reptiles? The fuck are you guys looking at? Like, what are you doing, dude? So it's a trip, but like reptiles has gotten me to travel, and I really appreciate that. And I mean, everywhere I go, I'll always find lizards. Always. I mean, we were in Europe, finding lizards all over the place. We're in France, lizards, Germany, lizards, Italy, lizards. It's always lizards, dude. Or snakes, frogs, whatever it is. I'm always looking for them.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great stuff. I love that. So another thing, you know, and I'd love to kind of try to try to. I know we've kind of had this theme in the conversation that's been this kind of umbrella theme, which has been like get out there, get in the field. But I would like to ask sort of like a question that, maybe we can table that, not because I want to stop talking about that, but because I don't want to. I'm sure that the answer to this question would be what we've been talking about, but I want to see what else there is in there. So, and the question is like, what would you like? It's sort of like a 3-part, maybe like it's kind of 3 separate questions in one. What excites you about herpetoculture at this moment in time? What would you like to see more of in herpetoculture at this moment in time and less of? Right. And so, or like maybe all that can be one thing. And again, I know that the answer to that could be, I'd like to see less carbon fiber perches and more getting out in herping. Right. But maybe other than that,
So what excites me personally is, a species that I have not kept before and a species that nobody else has kept before. That's like my thing is I'm super, super, super all about keeping stuff that nobody else has. And I don't know why it's like that. And most of my stuff other people do have, but I have some animals that nobody has. And for some reason that gets me just psyched knowing that it's like, there's nobody else that has these. And I can like say that with almost authority, like nobody has these.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people. I've been in this reptile trade since, like I said, I was 11 years old, 12 years old. I'm 43. It's been 30 something years. Like I know a lot of people, a lot of people in Europe. I know people in Asia. I know people in Russia. I know people here. And so like, dude, I will scour the world for certain species that I want to have a shot at. And so like, dude, and they're usually the tiniest, lamest brown gecko you could imagine. But yeah. It makes my blood flow. It gets me so psyched. Like I recently just got this gecko from Micronesia called Pyrochirus atilis, which, I mean, dude, 99. I did it actually. I went to a bunch of dudes that I know that really know geckos, and I was like, "What's this?"
Yeah,
none of them could tell me what it was. Then I went to like one of the leading gecko scientists and he nailed it. And I was like, dude, you just like, you made everything right in the world. You're a gecko scientist. I looked up to you and I respected you. I just showed you a gecko that nobody could ID, but I knew the idea of it and you just nailed it. And that was amazing. And so that was dope. So that gets me excited. What I want to see more of in herpetoculture, I want to see more broad knowledge. That's what I want to see. I want to see less YouTube knowledge, less idiocracy and fucking flashy bullshit. And I want to see more broad knowledge of reptiles. I want to see broad knowledge, dude. Like what is the deal? And I keep picking on these crested gecko keepers, but it's you guys. You guys are killing us. Stop it, dude. Like broad knowledge, man. Learn. Get some books, get some real books, get some field guides. Shit, you can learn about the crested geckos. Grab Bauer's friggin' New Caledonia book. That's a great place to start. Grab George Zug, Reptiles of the Pacific. That's another great place to start. You can even grab all the old Sadlier and Bauer papers where they described and rediscovered all this stuff, all these different bovines and stuff. Just read that stuff, glance through it, start learning, get into conversations with your friends about this shit. Just broad knowledge, dude. I feel like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there was like a large group of like serious reptile people who, we'd all have conversations together. It wasn't just gecko people. It was snake people. It was lizard people. It was amphibian people. And we'd all chop it up and all of us would learn. And I would learn stuff about frogs that I didn't give a shit to learn, but I took it in and I kept it. And now I know about frogs. And vice versa. Like me and a buddy, Chris of mine, like he's a big keeper. He's probably like your Spiloides and your Sustes and stuff like that probably went through his hands, or, I mean, he's had them, him and John Michaels, Black Pearl Reptiles. Like these are good friends of mine. And I've been to their house. I've held all their animals. I've seen their whole collections. We've had Thanksgivings in Mexico together. I mean, I travel with these guys. They're close friends of mine. They're into snakes. I'm into lizards. And we vibe off each other. And I learn about freaking Spiloides and Drymarchon and all the weird ass snakes that they keep. And in turn, they learn about the weird ass geckos that I keep just because we're chopping it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of knowledge, I feel like, it seems to not be around anymore. It seems like now everybody wants to talk about whether they're using Pangea or fucking Repashy, dude. And it's just like, yo, who gives a shit? Make your own. How about get some yogurt and some freaking banana, add a little honey and some freaking nutrients, vitamins and minerals, and blend it up, dude. Like, you guys are talking about bullshit, dude. And I don't, attacking people, but like, dude, it's just changed a lot, and it's gotten wild, dude. And it's kind of gotten pretty flat, actually. It's not gotten wild. It's gotten very flat. It's very flat. Like, I scroll through Facebook. I don't know. I have like 3,000 friends on Facebook, or some obscene number, just because I just accept pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll just get so tired of it where I'm like, oh, you posted a crested gecko? Mute for 30 days. Oh, crested gecko? Mute for 30 days. Mute for 30 days. And it's such a trip because this was a pipe dream when I was young, dude. Crested geckos at Petco is a pipe dream. That's stranger than fiction shit, dude. These were extinct. I paid freaking $1,800 for my first crested gecko. These things were extinct.
Right.
And now listen to me. I would never thought in a million years I'd be like bagging on people that kept crested geckos.
Dude. Yeah.
It's such a weird thing.
You kind of really hit it there, like the flattening of it, right? Like the flat. I think that's like really on point because, again, I'm gonna make an art analogy here, right? So when you're making a picture, one of the things that, like, you're making an illustration. Say Time Magazine hits you up and they say, we need a caricature of Steven Seagal for the front page, right? See, I brought martial arts in there too. So
perfect.
We need a caricature of Steven Seagal for the front page of Time, right?
That's 2 shots, everybody.
Yeah, right. Boom. You've got 3 days to finish it. Here are the dimensions. You need to do it in, it's got to be full color. You can do whatever media you want. Submit it by this day, this time, in this format, whatever. Okay. Generally speaking, the process you take is you make like thumbnail sketches. You get those approved from the art director because it's like a big, broad concept. And then you finish you start working on the final piece. And there's this thing that happens when you start working on the final piece where you can, like, newer artists and new students will get wrapped up in this minutia, like they get wrapped up in making adjustments and tiny bits of change to the picture that don't actually bring them any closer to completion of the piece, right? And so instead, we have to constantly redirect our focus towards making impactful, refining steps on a picture that bring us closer to a final piece, right? Like, because that's the point. It's not going to matter how many times you repaint the specular highlight in the eye. That's nonsense. It's meaningless. It's like a meaningless part of the picture. It doesn't change the overall message or picture that you're making or sending, right? And in some ways, what you just said, arguing about whether or not you feed Pangea or Repashy, feels like that. It feels like you're wasting time you're arguing over whether or not the specular highlight should be in the left eye or the right eye. Bro, I'm here to tell you it probably doesn't matter that much, right? Like, at the end of the day, that's not actually advancing your keeping. It's not advancing the hobby. I mean, and it's not that we shouldn't have these questions. It's not like I think people shouldn't be asking which is better. Like, maybe one is better than I'm call me biased. Like, Alan's a friend of mine. I'm going to say I use Repashy stuff too, but I'm trying to get a sponsorship over here. But, it doesn't feel like it's making it's not doing anything in your work. Right. Does that feel like it sums up the sort of like that flattening statement? Does that feel like it that gets to the heart of what you're getting at, or no?
Yeah. I think it does. I don't know what the final piece is.
Right.
And I mean, like, back to my statement, like, I know Alan and I know Jonathan from Pangea, and I like both the dudes are cool dudes. I wasn't bashing any of the foods, but I know. You got it. I mean, they could be arguing about whether they're using friggin' ARS or Freedom Breeder racks or whatever it is. But
right.
In terms of, like, it's just like, yes, there are a lot of stuff that they're just discussing is just like, it's done. It's figured out already. It's like, yo, these things have been bred to F100. I feel like what else is there to discuss about them?
Yeah, I feel like
what's left is go to New Caledonia. That's what's fucking left, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like this is something I talk about a little bit, is like the onlineification a little bit of herpetoculture, you know, and like the Facebook groups, you know, and instead of like you said earlier, like you're talking to like, you know, John and Chris, and like you guys keep different shit, but you're both reptile nerds, you know, and so there's cross pollination and there's, you know, generative discourse there. But, you know, if you guys were to meet today, it's like, and Facebook is the way that you're going to go about that, you're probably never going to cross paths, you know, because John's in the Dry Marcon group and Chris is over here and you're over here in the Gecko group or whatever. And it's like, there's a loss in that. Like, on one hand, it's great. Like I'm an admin in a couple of different groups. I'm an admin in a Spilotes group, and I started a Polycris group because it's useful to be able to like chop it up with other people who are specifically focusing on Polycris or Spilotes, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, it's also really useful to get a much broader view. And like you said, get that broad knowledge. And in a lot of ways, I feel like that is like, I'm thinking back to our last episode with Stefan about, you know, so much of the value of herpetoculture is that it exposes you to so much broader knowledge. You know, you learn about geography, you learn about travel, all these things because of an interest in these obscure herps, you know, and the places that they come from. And the fact that like, if you want to keep this species, you got to learn about where it came from, especially if like you're talking about no one's written the book. Mm-hmm. No one's written the article. No one's made the care sheet. You got to figure it out.
Absolutely. Like 100%. Like that's like, yes. I mean, and I mean, in part of that, like Facebook is a double-edged sword. Like it's amazing because it does together. Like you said, you made like a Polycris group. It's like, which is great because there's not a lot of people keeping like Marmoratus or any of those. And there's very few people in the US keeping Pruvionus. I think like 3, maybe. And without that, you guys probably wouldn't. I mean, maybe you're in contact with them. I don't know if you are or not, but like maybe you wouldn't be in contact with them without Facebook. And I wouldn't have met a lot of people without Facebook.
Wouldn't have met me.
At the same time, Facebook, you know, it also spreads discourse and it spreads friggin' just crazy nonsense. And it probably makes the kind of dumbing down of herpetoculture seem bigger than it is just because it's smashing you in the face every day. It's probably not as bad as I'm thinking that it is, hopefully.
Yeah, totally. Hopefully not.
When I do go to these, like when I went and did the talk at Tinley last month, and when I go and talk to people like in real life, I'm like, oh, these people are rad, dude. They're chill. They just like crested geckos, whatever. But I just like going back to my thing. I just want a broader sense of knowledge. I want these people, like crested geckos are dope because they brought a lot of people into the hobby. But like, if you're here to stay, fucking branch out, dude. Like, learn, meet some people, keep some other stuff. And I've seen people branching out. I definitely have. But just because I want more rare reptile people in this hobby, believe it or not. Like, I don't want it all for myself. And I don't think you guys want it all for yourselves. And I mean, Phil, you're keeping your mastics mostly, but dude, you've kept some of the rarest stuff in captivity, period. And I've gotten some of the rarest stuff from you, and we've swapped things back and forth. And I know you're focusing on your mastics, but dude, you had Phymaturus, you had Diplolamus, you had incredibly rare stuff. So you're in this conversation, and it's like, you know, you want people to be able to have these animals as well as you.
Yeah.
I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I want the, like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of this whole, I think, 5 years, 10 years ago, that people were saying the same shit about the ball python market. Oh, they're ruining the reptiles. Right. They're so lame. They're they're doing this. And now it's crested geckos. So I'm one of those, I guess, old farts that's just bitching, but I'm having a good time.
Get off my lawn
with my lizards. But yeah, man. I want to see him. I want to see him grow. You know what I'm saying? Like, grow a little bit, dude. You got 400 crested geckos. Next gecko, get something else.
Yeah.
You don't need 400.
I'm totally gonna buy a crested gecko now and just. I'm gonna send you a message with a picture of the crested gecko and say, should I feed it Rapacia or Pangea? Just to troll you.
Cresteds only.
I'm gonna send you a text when I land in Oman and be, I'm in Oman, Phil.
Yeah, loser, dude. You've been here, but you got a crested gecko.
Sorry,
bro.
Dude, you got a crested gecko.
What a drag, bro.
No, I'm not even against keeping crested gecko.
No, I'm just playing around, man. I'm totally playing.
I don't know what I'm against, dude.
So all right, so we're getting up in minutes here. I certainly don't want to stop the conversation just yet, but I do want to suggest that we start moving towards a close of the conversation. Not because it's not awesome, but because I have to eat dinner here with my wife here shortly. But with that in mind, we have, so there's one, like, I guess it's one question, but it's maybe two that I want to ask before we ask the closer. And that's, do you have who are some of the people inside herpetoculture who have inspired you, influenced you, motivated you, people that you admire, look up to, whatever? And what was it about them that you look up to? And then sort of secondarily, are there any influences, either people or concepts outside of herpetoculture that you use, that you bring into herpetoculture personally?
Man. In terms of like who I look up to, I mean, a lot of them are dead dudes that I was talking about, like that I read these histories of herpetology, just because I envy them so much. Like when I was a kid, just a dream. And still going to wild places, stepping foot where no man has stepped foot before, finding a new species, going to an island where maybe nobody's gone before, even if it's a fucking tiny rock sticking out of the ocean, just having that premiere moment, you know what I mean? Like being the first person, like that exploration. I mean, that's never left me. And, reading like Lewis and Clark books and crazy stuff when I was growing up, I wanted to be an explorer. And unfortunately that time has passed us. But I mean, because still, like if you were to look on my computer, any one of my computers at any second of any given day, Google Earth is always open, and it's always on some crazy ass random friggin' island or country out in the middle of nowhere. Because I'm just tripping out and just looking and being like, what the fuck? Look at this. Like I can't stop doing that. So a lot of that stuff I look up to. In terms of people that are alive, some of the German keepers, my buddy Mickey Zwanzig is really cool. He keeps a lot of animals, just a good dude. Some of the older guys, like this dude Herman Seufer, wrote kind of the book that got me interested in geckos. It was just called Geckos, and it had like a Phelsuma standing eye on the cover of it. And I met him a while back, went to his house, got to see all of his crazy Nautinus and stuff like that. He had like freaking 50 or
nice.
How many different species, crazy stuff. All the original ones with actual paperwork and shit. Because dude's so old that back in the 60s, I think it was, he just straight up wrote a letter to whatever agency down in New Zealand and said, hey, can I have some of your geckos? And they said yes, and gave him paperwork, and he got Nautinus, and he's had him, I mean, for years and years. He's got all these little greenhouses in this little Bavarian or German, I don't remember where it is, but it's just really cool, man. And he's just this sweet old man and his wife. And I wouldn't say he's an idol, but he wrote the book that got me into geckos. And so can't leave him out. My buddy Paul Wool was a big influence on me. He was the guy where I first saw his big collection. And then my buddy Greg Onishi was the first one to take me down in the field. And then another guy that a lot of people really don't like anymore because he burned a lot of people, and I understand, is John Boone.
Oh yeah. He
was around back in the day. We lost an immense amount of gecko knowledge when he kind of went off the deep end. But that dude, to this day, most knowledgeable, most insane rare gecko, and even reptile guy. I mean, he was one of the dudes where like you could literally talk deep about any species of any genus, and he was right there with you.
That dude's a wild man.
Yeah, and I've traveled extensively with him, all over Africa, all over the Caribbean, Mexico, United States. I've traveled a lot with him. We were good friends. And he just, I don't know. I had no idea he was ripping people off. He just was ripping people off. And then he just kind of disappeared. I've actually tried to reach out to him, I don't know, a couple of years back, never heard a response, but he was a big influence. And we lost a big player when that happened. Outside of herpetoculture, I don't know, man. Some of these big photographers, I've always been big fans of, like Art Wolf and Franz Lonting.
Oh, nice.
Big nature photographers, Mike Nichols.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the National Geographic dudes I'm really stoked on. And I'm just trying to think, man. I mean, growing up as a skateboarder, I loved a lot of my skater guys I liked, but in terms of like what influences me now would just be kind of those guys. And then like you guys are doing killer stuff, dude. Like Leeds, you're friggin' killing it with your elastics. Roy, like your cages are lit. Like every time I see him, I'm just like, dude, this guy goes so above and beyond. Like it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna make these killer rocks and put these plants in. He's like, no. This is the whole biome, dude. Like these plants are straight up from the guy on a shield. Like if you find a freaking polychorus, it's gonna be climbing on one of these plants that's in the damn cage. Like you guys are just doing it dope. And it's the first, like, kind of, I don't want to say breath of fresh air, but I kind of do want to say breath of fresh air. Like it's at least on social media where I'm like, dude, fuck yeah. Cause I don't listen to social media stuff just cause it's kind of, it's just not doing it for me. And I want it to, and I try often. I check, I'll look, I'll watch Dave Kaufman stuff. I'll be like, all right, that was cool. It's corny as shit, but I liked it. It was cool. He went out, he caught stuff. He's traveling a lot. That Noah kid who's on YouTube, who's got a ton of followers, and he just runs around with his phone filming like 50 snakes every day, doing his thing. It's rad. It's not friggin' watered down. It's not clickbait freaking trash. So those dudes are doing it. There's a couple other. Most of the dudes who are doing it are very small channels. The real big channels just not doing it for me. And so when I first found your guys' thing, I was stoked. Listened, I was like, dude, hell yeah, definitely gonna listen to that.
Do you have a
thanks for that, man?
Yeah, that means so much. It's really great to hear that and gratifying beyond belief. But like, do you mind if I ask? Was there a particular episode that stuck out for you that you liked, that like you just remember or you took a lot away from?
What was the very first one I listened to? I think Ron St. Pierre was the first one I listened to, maybe, but I don't even think it was. That one was good because he's just funny to listen to. He's been around obviously forever. When I was a kid, I remember like seeing his ads, and I went to Daytona and I would see him. I don't know the dude, but I'd see him and I'd be like, that dude's so scary. Look at him. He's fucking crazy, dude. But like, he's awesome.
Ron's a wild man, dude. He's so cool. He's a good dude. He's a really good person. He's really like, he doesn't like to admit it, right? He'll sit there and puts on this like hard persona, but he's like a sweetheart of a dude. And he's gonna kill me for saying that, but like he's great. He's a really, really nice. There goes
our sponsorship.
Yeah, it's all gone.
Man.
I tried to help you. I was saying that I was saying that first episodes, but no, he seems like a really cool dude, and just the history. And I'm sure that when I was a kid, I sent him one of those freaking self-addressed stamped envelopes too, and got his price list.
Oh yeah.
So that was one of the first ones. I think I listened to. What's his name? Justin Munsterman, I think, with the and the different Ceratophrya and stuff, that was cool. He's got some cool lizards. The last one you guys did with Marky, Euromastics dude, it was a cool one. I mean, I've listened to just about all of them. Some of the people, I'm just like, this dude's off the fucking wall, but you still have good conversations with him.
Yeah.
And, dude, it's been fun to listen, and I hope you guys keep doing it. Dustin Grand, he's killer. I met him in Tinley. Me and him had a drink together. He's a cool ass kid. He's doing it right. That dude's one of the kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Keeping cool stuff. He's out there field herping. He's setting his shit up right. He knows what he's talking about.
Photos too.
Yeah, he's a good dude. His whole crew of dudes is cool. But yeah, you guys have. I mean, some of the people you pick, it's like, I don't know where or how you found them. They're just super random, but it always ends up being like, yo, that took up my hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm happy that it did. It was entertainment.
Man, that's awesome. Good. That's some badass to hear. So this is a new thing that I actually kind of forgot about in the last couple of episodes, or maybe one or two episodes, but and then we'll do this, and then we'll do the closer question. I have ChatGPT 4 pulled up right now. Can you give me a question that you want to like a herpetoculture related question that you want me to ask ChatGPT 4? Because I want to ask it a question, and then we want to read the responses. I'm doing this just for shits and grins. There's no reason for this. This is just plain old fun weirdness.
Oh boy, you know I'm going to bring up
He's
something
imposing his AI agenda on all of us, man.
I am, dude. Yeah, like get with it.
a crested gecko question. Let's think of something funny.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it would answer it correctly. Like, what if we said, what would the world come to if we didn't have crested geckos? But like,
We should,
oh
we should
man,
ask it if it's better to feed crested geckos Repashy or Pangea.
do it.
Do it. That? Okay.
I didn't say it. Phil did. Alan and John.
Or Pangea food better for crested geckos. I bet this is going to I bet this is going to be pretty good.
Pretty neutral.
Okay, so it says choosing between Repashy and Pangea foods for crested geckos mostly comes down to personal preference and the specific needs of your gecko, as both brands offer high quality options. Here are some considerations. Oh my God, this is impressive. Nutritional content. Both Repashy and Pangea offer complete diets, meaning they include all the necessary nutrients and vitamins for your crested gecko. However, the specific formulation and ingredient list can vary, so it's important to compare these two to see which aligns better with your gecko's needs. Flavor varieties, which it's got a description of like each brand offers a range of flavors, and geckos can be picky eaters. Offering a variety can be a good way to determine your gecko's preferences. Ease of preparation, how easy it is to make, pricing and availability. Feedback from other gecko owners. It can be helpful to consult with other crested gecko owners or forums to see what experiences others have had with these brands. Consult a veterinarian for the best advice tailored to your specific gecko. Consult with a veterinarian who specializes in reptiles. They can provide guidance based on the health needs of your pet. And last, it says, ultimately, both Repashy and Pangea are reputable brands used by many crested gecko owners. You might want to try both and see which one your gecko prefers and thrives on. Remember, the health and behavior of your gecko are the best indicators of whether their dietary needs are being met. That's a good answer.
That is insane that was not written by a human being.
That is an AI, my friends. We're all fucked.
That's sketchy, dude.
Fucked.
Yeah.
I love this. I think this is really cool. Like I've been using ChatGPT for a while. Like I'm paying for it for the last like 4 or 5 months. It's an awesome tool. It's badass. But
Trippy.
With that said, Roy, would you like to ask our closer question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So Frank, our closer question is why herpetoculture? And that could be why for you. Why do any of us do this thing? Why does it matter?
Oh, herpetoculture. Well, I mean, I love reptiles. Like I am kind of like you said earlier, Phil, where you said there's something about you guys that I just can't, you guys just won't get off of my mind. And it's been that way for, I mean, at this point, it's so weird. It's been that way for, 30 something years to where it's just so ingrained in me. And so it's just in my fiber. It's crazy. And so it's almost, it's hard to even answer it, but
yeah,
I mean, to me, it goes back to what we were talking about, man. It helps me to try. It goes hand in hand with travel, and it gets me to want to travel to places. It's a thing for me to stay interested in. I'm, acutely interested in these animals for whatever freaking reason. And it's a very liquid thing. I feel like it's not just a solid thing where it's, if you had this interest in like, I don't know, freaking like Legos or something where it's like, you can only do so much with Legos, but with reptiles, there's always something to do. There's new research coming out. There's new species. You can travel to a new place. You can try to keep a new animal. You can try something different with the animals you keep. I mean, there's so many different things you can do that it's all encompassing. There's a million things you can do. And it's kept my interest for so long because of that. Like we've talked about, there's so many facets of it. We talked about the whole Venn diagram thing. And like, I liked where we were with that, where the middle was the best place to be. There's the field, there's the herpetoculture, and being in that center circle, feeling versed in both, I feel like is the best place to be. And I'm kind of trying to keep myself right in the middle right there. That's where I want to be. I don't want to be the best at keeping, and I don't want to be the worst at keeping. I don't want to be the best at field herping. I don't want to be the worst. I want to be right there in the middle. where I'm comfortable and keep my animals, do my travel, make my little videos, talk to my buddies like you guys, and keep it going. And, you know, I want to see our hobby and our quote unquote trade, which is annoying to say that, but I get it because people make their living on it. You make your living on it.
Mhm.
Dude, Josh, Markey, like plenty of people that you guys talk to make your living off of it. Roy, you don't make your living off of it, do you?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Sorry, Phil. But no,
Okay.
I have no
Okay.
desire to make a living on reptiles.
All right.
But I respect the people who do. But yeah, I don't have a desire to do that. And so I don't even know why I said that. Why did I say that?
How dare you? How dare you? No, just
I just needed to take a stab at you. I was like, I got to take a stab at this guy.
please
Oh
don't.
yeah,
You're just spraying the block on your way out, man.
spraying. No, I was saying when I say it's a trade, because I'm in this and I've been in this. I mean, back when I got into it, there was very, very, very few people doing it for a living. There was no like hobbyist style people doing it for a living. Everybody was just keeping reptiles. And so to me, that's how it was and always will be. I'm keeping them for the love. If I make some money here and there, I'm going to spend it on travel to go look at these things in the wild. So that's what it's going to be. And that's why herpetoculture, I guess.
Love it. Yeah.
I love that answer.
Thanks for that, man.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That was great shit. Well, I know you're not necessarily, I know you're kind of like on and off social media in a way, I guess. You say you're on Facebook, but you don't sort of use it. Like you don't like to use it. You don't like to scroll through it. Can you tell people where they can find various stuff that you do? So like maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on social media way more than I should be. I get disgruntled when I scroll too much, and that's not even reptiles; it's everything. But yeah, I'm on it all the time. My name Frank Colacicco on Facebook is that's who I am. Reptilian Diaries is on Facebook. Reptilian Diaries is on Instagram, and Reptilian Diaries is on YouTube.
Most importantly,
YouTube. Check the videos out; they're fun. There's some good ones. You'll see some countries that there's no other YouTube video, herping videos on that subject. Like we did an Oman series. We did United Arab Emirates. We've done some Ecuador stuff. We've done some Australia stuff. We've done some good ones. I'm proud of the stuff. It's not, it's not great stuff, but it's entertaining. Instagram kind of follows along with that. I was posting pictures whenever I do a video, but since I barely have time to do videos anymore, my Instagram account is kind of staled up. But I'm just gonna start posting photos that I've taken and take new photos and post them up. And Facebook, if you want to message me, you can. As much as I talked all disgruntled about the hobby, I'm pretty big in it. I import and export 4 times a year. I bring a lot of animals from Europe. I ship a lot of animals to Europe. If you've got super rare lizards and stuff like that, there's a damn good chance they came through my hands. So hit me up. I'm always down to chat. I'm nicer than I probably sounded on this podcast, but
super nice guy
for having me. That was a good time. We'll have to do it again.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for the time.
Sick.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Roy, you want to hit that button?
All right. Yep.